going and getting a new warehouse provider is a fairly upfront intensive investment. So you want to rein in that ROI as much as you can. And that's usually our goal, is how quickly can we get their return on investment by positioning it not only with the right expertise to manage it, but geographically where it needs to be. And
you really have to understand and document your business requirements. You have to do your homework up front. And that includes both your short-term goals and your long-term goals. Where do you want to be? You do the mapping gap assessment of that, and if it meets your needs, then that goes in the look at column. And if it doesn't, then you really need to reevaluate your choices.
One of the toughest misses on getting a WMS provider is the total cost of ownership concept. There's a concept of transitioning your business from one provider to the other. And then there's the aspect of what all can that provider do from order to cash. So for example, on the front end, sometimes we've taken over the staging and integration and loading of software and firmware, and that's been of a benefit to the customer. The benefit of accurate inventory and cycle counting, we've been in a position to take some customers away from getting physical inventory audits. And then just going downstream to the transportation, sometimes when you're dealing with large companies, they have a group that controls the transportation side, the warehouse side. So how do you get everybody in the room and have a conversation and make sure they understand the aggregate benefit of it? Collecting as much information as we can on the front end to negotiate everything into TIs, tenant improvements. So instead of, all right, I have to pay you $1 million for racking and all these other items, can we incorporate that in tenant improvements and it gets spread across the life of the lease? We want to leave our partners in a better position where we are an augmentation of their business. We're just an extension of their business and they see us that way.
When people are selecting a warehouse management system, they don't consider all of the functionality that they need. They know the basics. They know that they need to be able to receive inventory, they need to be able to store it, they need to be able to ship it. But people forget that there's a whole layer of functionality that's required to run a warehouse.
For instance, if part of your solution or part of your technology strategy is cloud, does your application support cloud? Is it cloud native or is it cloud enabled? What hardware do you support? Are you hardware agnostic? Do you support RF devices? Do you support mobile printers? What about the material handling solutions? Do you support a variety of those, or do you only go with a specific manufacturer? What is your integration strategy? Your application integration? Are you open API? What ERP systems and order management systems are you agnostic, or do you only integrate to certain solutions?
It's also important to choose an application that invests back in its product. If they have an R&D department, or if they have improvements that they're regularly adding to the software, then that reduces how many customizations or enhancements that you might have to make internally. If they're constantly adding features, making their product better, and reinvesting in their application, then you don't have to make that investment yourself. And also you get the benefit of their team doing all of the testing and ensuring that it's going to function properly. When you start hitting limitations in the application, there's a lot of cost and a lot of time involved with enhancing and adding functionality. So it's really important to choose an application that has a lot of the functionality that you need, standard product, without having to customize.
I think one of the most important pieces there is the application extensible? Does it support extensions to the core product, and can that be done by our users versus the software provider? That means that we can essentially modify the application quickly. It should be configurable, of course, but can we modify the application to meet our unique business needs without having to do extensive coding from a software development perspective? You have to make sure that the technology solution stays current at all tiers. That includes its operating systems and its databases. Does it support the latest versions out there? Does it have good programs to ensure that those versions stay continually updated? When new releases come out, how often, how long before they get certified to run on those solutions? Also, it's very important to make sure they have a good patching and update program at all tiers.
It's important for a provider to have a documented, well-defined procedure for support. You need to have escalation procedures, so that if you have a production issue, there's a way for you to quickly get support. And then if you just have a regular issue, you need to have the ability to escalate or to increase the priority if you don't get a response. One of the things we look for when we select an application is that they have a broad user group, that there's a website or a portal that you can go to get help from the user community, and that you're not trying to learn the application just blindly. And then if you want structured support, or you want the vendor to provide support, you should be asking what kind of training materials they provide, what options. Is it virtual? Is it on-site?
As you're doing your research, I think it's important when you talk to the provider to talk about information security. Do they support secure coding standards during their development? Is that taken into account not only during the standard product development, but all extensions? The other piece is encryption. It's very important, especially as we go through in today's world, to make sure that the data is secure at rest and in transit. I think it's very important to look at that holistically, and that's a complete package from information security to the hardware you support. You want to peel that onion back very specifically to make sure it not only meets your current needs, but your technology strategy and your technical tenets going forward.